Okay, let's get it started. Ooh. It's one of those days where I'm just struggling to get moving to begin the day. So, where are we with Liquid Sky? So, we have the delete or remove. I mean, uh, UI layout aside, what I've done is I've actually made it so that the add form, the edit form use. I just hate naming this thing because I've called it manage requirement, which is add or edit, right? It's not quite managing it, but I always feel like that's a struggle for me to name that piece. By the way, if we go and add, we should have add and nothing should be populated or create. Need to make my naming consistent as well, because that is unhealthy requirement. It's an easy thing to miss, but edit requirement and now add new add requirement. Right. So the ability to edit requirement. I removed the preview for now. I figure I'll work on that later. It was more of a proof of concept anyway, but it just made that entire screen a complete mess. So this is a new requirement. I want to verify that editing is working properly. Update. This isn't hiding, which is bugging me. So is visible. Is it erroring? Yes. Cannot read properties of undefined for name. Requirements component. Ah, there we go. Ah, I get it. So I chose to do, well, I don't know if I chose. I kind of figured that I should, to do the update of the requirement, I needed to swap out. So basically, whether I'm doing the action is based upon whether I've got a requirement identifier. If I don't have a requirement identifier, the camera's there, I should look over there more. If I don't have a requirement identifier, then I'm adding, otherwise I'm updating. So in the update in here, and this is to the point now where I'm a little worried about the size and the complexity of these pieces. And obviously there's a lot of duplication here right now. The add, the update and the delete all manipulate the store contents afterwards. And what I'm doing here is I'm splicing in this requirement, but I don't want to do that. I kind of want to update what's there. Um, so I kind of want to merge the contents of that element. So that'll find the planning item that the requirement identifies, the requirement is attached to. That's inefficient because if I've got hundreds of planning items in the page, and they've got dozens of requirements, I'm going to search through hundreds, if not 1,000 or so requirements just to find the one I want. So this is not ideal. And this is a consequence of following down the path of Well, my planning item is my root object, therefore everything must be attached to my planning item, which means that everything has to be everything has to start at the planning item. So this is less than ideal. In this instance, in the add, I actually get the planning item, so it narrows it down. And I can pass it in, it just seems odd. What I could do here, though, is if I make that planning item identifier, and then this is requirement, and that's requirement dot ID there. Remove that. Then on the other side, on here, and what we need to do is ID this dot requirement identifier. That'll still function. Update requirement now doesn't need, well, we need planning item identifier. And then this dot, that needs parens because that's an input. I still think a lot of this is very much. So then what we do here is this is a little quicker because now we can go specifically to the f.id equals. Right, that gives us our planning item a little quicker. Doesn't get us the requirements. Right. But if I do, that's a requirement now. Requirement to update. Patch state of that might be a little bit too vague. So I have I have a potentially updated title and content on that element. I'm going to patch this collection in the store. So the only way of doing this is to pull the entity out. Yeah. title equals requirement dot title, right? That's going to be as requirement. So that is that by reference though? I suppose is the question. Let's see. I don't like that code. It's bugging me. That's a new requirement. It should update just fine. Oh, like that. Requirements are broken. So some things are going wrong in there. Provided expression resulting. Oh, that's interesting. The duplicate key at index 0 and 4. What? Oh, is that actually doing that? No. So why is it doing that? That's the thing is that's loading. It genuinely is duplicating. Banana kick pop time. There you go. Okay. Authorization. I think I just copied that and I shouldn't have copied that. Copy value. Apply. Okay, so we're going to do what we need to do is get the network request. That's the identifier. So we go to planning item by ID. Request that one. And we should get requirements. And let's just knock out the noise. Save that one. Duplicate. Let's save that. No. Let's put that in there. Let's knock out the noise. Okay, so we get requirements embedded, requirements embedded, requirement. Okay, so we do have a lot of problems here. Um, okay. Um, that's that. And that is a duplicate of that. Should only be these last ones, I suppose. Let's remove them. Save that. Let's go and fix the code. So, requirements. You know that you ain't gonna need it. Update planning item requirement. I don't check to see if I've got it. Tests, view application concerning integration when updating requirements. When requirement doesn't exist. Save a bit of time. What? The when requirement exists. I'm not having a good time this today. I did not feel completely with it. Okay. Requirement is updated. Um, we don't need to acquire the user. I'm not sure we need to acquire planning item. Let's look in a second. So when we send, let's deal with this part. When we're going to say repository dot when R goes to, oh dear. Okay. Dot any is it that? Would it be that? Uh, existing planning item by identifier spec, requirement by identifier spec, I will assume requirement identifier. Yeah. That's that. I got any cancellation token. That's that. Do. Why don't you like that? Oh. That returns. R goes to requirement. So we have a requirement identifier for that. And right now, requirement is updated. Intended outcome. Read only string. Updated outcome. Updated outcome. Updated outcome. So we're going to pass in the update. If I don't fix this, every time I go and edit a requirement, it's going to duplicate the requirements, and then it's going to create more bugs for me to chase. So I've got to fix this before I can go to the other piece and identify why it's not actually updating in the UI. And maybe it was, and this was causing a problem and just hiding that fact. Um, okay, so one test should pass, one test should fail. Because we shouldn't update, obviously, because we don't test. That's the worst possible outcome when a requirement doesn't exist. Oh, because, hold on. Because I don't check. And that should be update async. Right? This should fail. There we go. Does it fail for the right reason? Expected reason for call matching. Okay, so let's go make that code pass. Update planning item requirements. So first thing we need to do is bar existing equals await repository. But first the default. If existing is null, so if it doesn't exist, then we need to create it for the first time. So we go get the created by user ID, we go get the planning item ID, and we assign this. The idea being that you wouldn't change the planning ID, you wouldn't change the planning item ID for a requirement at this point. If that was a feature later on, we'll worry about that later on. I'm not going to panic about it right this second, but existing dot title equals command dot title, existing dot intended outcome equals command dot intended outcome, and last updated should be cared for by the system anyway. Or it should be handled by the system. Okay, so let's run those tests. Acquire user ID should fail now because then there's no need to require user ID because again that's so to receive a call update async, it didn't receive that one. So however, I'm going to get rid of acquire planning item. That's no longer necessary. So these two don't need to be there. Hey, Tick, how's it going? Object reference. repository when requirement by identifier spec returns that. Mm. The rate I'm going, this might not be a very long stream because I might need to just stop the stream and go get coffee and something to eat. So I can actually do some work today. Why is that failing? So existing repository first to default. When repository first to default async returns new requirement. So this should come out not null. Yeah. Just having a weird start to the day where I just don't have any energy. This is okay, so we're getting null, that's why. Even in this case. So but we don't test that. Come on. Repository first to default async. Repository when first to default async. Any requirement by identifier spec with any cancellation token. Yeah, because you can't deal a constructor. Hey Ez, how you doing? That's me every day. Yeah. So like I want to do this. I want to figure this out, right? But I'm like just struggling with the yawning and the general tiredness. So what I'm working on right now is the edit scenario. I'm gonna worry about the UI later. I spent half an hour trying to line things up and I'm like, nope, I'm done. I've been looking for a job for a while now. Finally, the end of year roles are popping up. Seems like companies hire most September to January. Huh. Interesting. Huh. I wonder if that's a financial year thing. Dear. Other side. Repository. I'm doing the right order. Returns new requirement. What's going wrong there then? Updating planning items. When updating attachments. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. That should be that. It mocks the method call. That's the problem. So I've always found job hunting easier around then, to be fair. That might not be a correlation. Ah. If you've gone long periods of time where you've been looking for a job and nothing's come around, and then all of a sudden that time period does yield better results. I think it's a bit more scientific than not. Running tests. There we go. Okay. So this prevents the duplication. We now have a test around that to validate that we do the update. It's not perfect. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. Let's run this all up again. Yeah, definitely. This takes a few minutes to start up properly. So my actual hope was to have got this done before the stream so that I didn't have to continue on with more requirements. But I felt it was, necessary to get it up and running. So the goal is to get the requirements piece working so I can add, edit, delete them. At that point, they become quite useful. We got the status working last week or the other week. Taking those days off to go to Texas just messed me up. So it actually worked out pretty well that the Friday stream was the anniversary stream. It meant it was a bit more of a clean break, right? And now, okay, let's verify that that doesn't return duplicates first. That's challenge number one, right? Because we don't need this to returning duplicates and causing more problems. Okay, that's fine. So we're going here now. It shouldn't be a mess. Okay. Let's edit a requirement. Editing the requirement. The page should disappear. The content should update, and a refresh should load the same. That's step one. Fail. Why are you still complaining? You shouldn't be complaining. You shouldn't be failing. You shouldn't be struggling to track. It's not right. Editing the requirement. The page should disappear. The content should. So it got. So that saved to the server. The server updated it. The integration event fired. The view component loaded it. For some reason, the page isn't updating. So that actually did make it all the way to the round trip around the server. But yeah, I'm gonna have to track edits as well. Ads are gonna start in 3 minutes. Um, the provided track expression resulted in duplicated keys for a given collection. Requirements component. Duplicate keys were 388. There's no 388. Oh, 388. Oh, there's still a duplicate in the database, isn't there? 388 D, yeah, there's still a duplicate there. Okay. Need to be on level playing field, right? I need to be. Sorry. I was saying we need to be on a level playing field. We need to make sure that we're not broken for other reasons. So that's why it's worth doing that. But the problem here comes in that I am not um I'm not patching the contents of that element. So the item in here doesn't update, and for some reason the screen doesn't close. So well, actually, some reason I think that is why the screen doesn't close. Something goes wrong in here. Pardon me. Because what should happen here is this. So let's verify that part. Okay, we'll edit. Does it close? And we finish working on it now. I'm not assigned to read-only property title of object. Interesting. Now we see the true error. So um hey Manish, how you doing? Thanks. Okay, so we go back to what we were doing before. So what we do is find index and then if to update equals -1, resolve false. Otherwise, we do requirements to update. You do. You do that? Does that work? I don't know. Requirement to be added. This is actually being edited now. It got there. Still didn't close this. Is the clock right now working? No, no, no. This is my personal stuff. No, I don't start until 9:30. So yeah. But I normally stream right up until the time I'm going to start get ready for work. So if I'm still feeling sleepy and groggy in a little bit, I'm just going to end the stream earlier and go get some coffee and some fruit or something, so I can be a little bit more prepared for work. Um, so anyone new joining the stream, if you are interested in what I'm doing, if you want me to explain anything, please let me know. The project is quite a large project. It is an ongoing project. So that updated in the background. So that did work. Hey Manoj. So do you work from home or travel to the office regularly? I work from home. There is no office specifically for me to travel to. The trip last week was to an offsite in Texas for training. So I got to meet some of my colleagues, which was awesome, and do some training. And I was there at the end of August as well. But now no travel for a little while. That's bugging me. Why? So there's two things. This resolved as true. So why didn't this hide? Right. And actually, let's do this. Debugger. I thought you were from the UK. I am originally. I'm actually East Coast, US. Um, this is 17 years of being in the US on my accent. Now updating the contents of this. And I don't travel back there often, by the way. So we got two updates, number 3, requirements 3. Okay, so that's what requirements 3 looks like now. And then we step over, and requirements 3 now looks like that. Losing all its information and that'll crash it. Okay, so we're not patching that data in there. That's a problem. But that does work to patch the item into the array if the array item but it doesn't leave any fields. So, but that errors, yeah. So that's a different error actually. So again, so when you wake up for the project, I get up about an hour before the stream every day. And if um, I can tinker around a little bit, but normally I'm basically just starting the stream and getting onto the project at the same time. So I spent some time over the weekend working on this. Trying to get so again, right now I had add requirement and I've got now manage requirement because the add edit is in the same. I don't think manage requirements the final name of that. Let's do this. So you can't do it that way. That's not valid. So do you do, does that work? No. So you can't patch in properties of an object. Let's see. Oh, okay. So we can do requirements to update, comma, title, Nintendo.com. There we go. Client side is my biggest weakness. I do not enjoy doing this stuff as much as I do the back end stuff. I like solving problems on the back end. I like figuring out how to make things work, how to make data flow, how to make events happen, all those sorts of things, right? I like that aspect. On the client side, I feel I get stuck too often in JavaScript, and that's not my comfort zone. Um, so these are the contents. Now this should show and close the dialog, maybe. Okay. Oh, we got it working. There we go. Same. Yeah, this is a necessary evil. Um, I do believe that the best client side stuff comes from people who are really, really good at doing this stuff. I'm doing a Udemy course in Angular at the moment to get better at it. Yeah. I just don't have enough brain power spare to spend going off trying to learn how to do something, apply it, and then, so I'm not, you know, if I was building a company around this, I would be hiring experts on doing this. I would not be let's tackle everything. Okay, so this should close the dialog. So this is in the view database. So that event has made it all the way through. So this is valid. This is, if I refresh and look at that requirement, it should still be updated. There we go. Okay. Editing is working. And I learned that you can, I mean, I've seen this somewhere else as well. I've done this in other places, but I've patched the item into. Now, could I make that cleaner? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of mess in there. Okay, so whether you're adding or editing, it will perform the action. That's the goal there. Now, remove the debuggers. Sorry, dog, is my foot not in the correct position for you? And Now we can remove add requirements as a component because we don't need that anymore. That'll probably create a complaint there somewhere. Add requirement component. And manage. Just to make sure that's a little cleaner. Oh dear. Planning components. Such a mess. Again, what I was trying to do before is go through and organize these, and I still think that my folder layout of the Angular application is poor. I think it's just components and views and whatever as I've merged them together that I need to kind of just get a handle on and chain and basically just grow an understanding of how to structure the code properly. But it means that I'm going to end up with massive things here. This is interesting though that even third-party libraries, right? There's no module or anything to reference them by, and standalone being the standard now. I don't know if that's even going to get any better. I kind of like the module idea, but either way, that's not for me to challenge right this second. Okay, home component. What do you mean has no view planning modules, planning views, planning items, home component? Oh, okay. So we should be able to go into any one of these and edit requirement. This adds a new requirement. This requirement is added. We should be able to delete a requirement. That removes it. We should be able to go in and what else? Updating requirements of a planning item. Should be able to edit an item as a product manager. I should be able to edit the requirements of a planning item. A pencil icon should appear next to the requirement. When I click it, a dialog symbol to the add requirement should appear and provide me the chance to change the contents. That's working. One thing that's not ideal there is I'm not tracking who changed it. Let's see, changes. Interesting that changes don't calculate there. Oh, but there's no changes. If I add a requirement, it'll change. But because I'm not deleting a requirement, actually where did I just delete that requirement from? Is it over here? Yeah. So when I deleted that requirement off here, that triggered the change. And that's just telling me that a change was removed. If I actually edited the change, requirements are not being tracked for changes right now. So I don't need to, so I haven't put any content stuff in there. But again, that would be a component of the system that you would be able to be alerted to modifications and things like that. So this entire piece will require a lot more effort eventually. And also probably, I don't want cheap viewers. I'm happy with the ones I've got. Okay. So I'm not pleased overall, but I don't know to do any better right this second, right? So the code is structured. The UI code references a store. The store has actions on it. I call those actions. Those actions have they call services, and then they modify their store data appropriately. It doesn't feel very clean. It feels very repetitive. It feels very fragile is the best word I can actually use right this second. However, I don't know any better way to do this right now. So that's the only way I have available to me. That being said, they're all in the same place, they're all in the same structure. So if I figure out a better way, if I learn some new techniques, at least the code is in a place where I know how it's being done. And I don't have to chase over, months worth of what was I doing here? Oh, how did I do this? Ugh. So yeah. Ooh. Sorry. So let's commit these. Okay. On the client, I'm gonna view client update. I get a client to edit, combine, edit, add, edit functionality to same component. I mean that's it. On the server side, I did a previous commit. So when updating you the update. So that update scenario is actually hey, Emporium guy. Thank you very much. Did you miss Friday's stream? um when update so this is a component that it was easily forgotten about, but what it was is as I was planning out the updates to the requirements, I missed the fact that the requirement as it's consumed would also need to be reflected and make sure that that's there. So it's a sort of thing when you're going through planning and you're going through pointing, that can add significant complexity, right? In this case, it didn't really add significant complexity, but it did cause some problems. Ah, well, it's good to be back on the actual stream. If a little sleepy, so we might not make it to the entire 2 hours today. We might call it a little early today, but we'll see. How was your weekend? How are you doing? But yeah, the point there is when you're going to do story planning and story prep, it's important that you understand the code, the the code in the system as it stands, and understand the behaviors. And when you don't understand things, at least take the time to go off and try and learn those things and understand those things. Because in this case, it didn't really derail me. But it's those scenarios where you're more likely to say, we need to get this done quick because the story's getting backed up and we've got a problem because we missed the fact that it's going to duplicate the data. Let's just get the code done and then we'll come back around and do the unit test later. And that's dangerous. So when updating the view, when the requirement view should not component need to yeah. So that's something you got to keep an eye on. All right. We just finished a large project and the proofreading was done on a Saturday. No more heavy workloads for another week. Okay. Nice. Update routing configuration support put for requirement. Okay. Push, 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 push. Okay. So now I've got to ask myself, can I live with that horrendous UI? It's getting worse. I do know that being that I'm yawning now, if I start trying to tinker with that, I'm going to get bored. So I've got to be honest with myself. Is it something I can live with? Not really. I hate the way that looks. But am I willing to sit here on a stream and pretty much fall asleep trying to do that? I'm just being honest because I'm not sure I have the attention span or focus to even achieve that right this second because I don't know what to do. I've tried lining them up. I've tried centering them. I've tried aligning the pieces. I just don't know what to do. So what should happen is this bar should be a lot smaller. This text should fit in the middle, and these two ideally will be sat over to the right hand side. Having looked at it, these have a little bit more padding than I want them to, and now they're all sat skewy. So if I call the story done and merge it, that's the way the UI looks, right? So sorry. Okay. Being that this is not my final version of the UI, right? This is not the way I want this to look eventually. I'm not too worried about certain decisions. But then I've taken those certain decisions a few times now, right? So the show completed, look at the way that offsets that. I've not gone back and tidied that up. I've not figured out what that should look like. These buttons here, right? If I was to put this in front of people, they'd be like, well, it doesn't all line up. And that'd actually be a problem. because it looks unprofessional. It looks messy. But I'm not going to do that on a stream. So let's actually, before we go too far, one of the things that I do have access to that I paid to use, so I might as well do it, right? Is Mobbed. And I probably need to be in DuckDuckGo for that. Mobbed.com. Those are images. They are lucid icons. Yeah, they are lucid icons. Let's take a bit of time to have a look at, see what's been added to Mobbed since we last looked. Might be some better tools. CRM, productivity. Let's have a look at productivity first. Attio, I think that's one we've looked at before. Linear, I think we've looked at before. Webflow, Todoist. One app to replace them all. Yeah, no, they're not. They're SVGs. They're pulled in as SVGs, so they're images. But yeah, lining them up and doing all that and messing around with that is challenging. Marketing pages, you want flows. Here we go, flows. Adding a time estimate, creating a new list, adding subtasks, adding a description, adding sprint points. Okay, so we call it adding a task doing this. Adding a task. Okay. So we go click on a plus button to create a task from anywhere in the ClickUp. So create new task. Feature A. We assign it to a list. We set a due date. Huh. Terrible idea. If something else that I just saw lines up with that, I don't think that's a great idea. Calling it a due date, but okay. There we go. There's your product list. Okay. So the reason is because I saw sprint points. It's got a due date, a time estimate, and we're going to assign sprint points. Maybe you should try to use font awesome, something similar so you can have text and icons the same size. Um, I can make them the same size. Well, I can make them similar size. The problem is the padding around the elements. So right now these are um, planning, components, requirements. These are lucid icons, right? So there's a margin of 2 around it. A size 16. So I honestly believe that it's just a case of um, if you try to post a link there, Manoj, it won't let you post links by default. Um, bad experiences with bots in the past, so um, I believe it's just taking the time to sit down, align them properly, get them all laid out correctly, and whatnot. It's just I'm not sure I want to spend that time right this second, because it'll just because it's just an exercise in frustration for me. Okay, I think this is a tool trying to achieve everything. I just don't like the idea of seeing time estimate and sprint points on the same board. It bugs me. There's not like there's been much added to mobbing in terms of these sorts of tools. I do notice, by the way, from mobbing, there's a lot of light mode stuff. There's not a lot of dark mode that I've seen. So what would you do, Red? You're building this product. The focus is on features. Nice one, line. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Do I spend that time now, considering this might not even be the final way this looks, right? I really do want to find someone who's good at UI UX to go and do a makeover of the application, but I feel that the application needs the features. But again, if I don't spend at least a little bit of time making it look at least like it should do, then my ideas aren't going to be in there, and also people aren't going to be able to comprehend what I'm actually doing. So I'm trying to find the balance of time sink, knowing full well I don't want it to look like this in the end, versus just pride in the fact that that does bug me. Yeah. So we can save this. The main thing would be getting the HTML structure in a way that you can style it later without much change to HTML. I I don't. The thing is, I don't. If I get someone who can do a good UI UX makeover, I have no issue changing the entire client. Right. I don't mind spending a month or two going through and rebuilding the UI, but I want the features in there. The features don't. These features aren't going to necessarily change, are they? Right. The ideas are sound. I need to be able to change a requirement. I need to be able to add a requirement. I need to be able to delete a requirement. I need to be able to add attachments, see changes. The way they look, the way they lay out on the screen might differ. Um, so I'm fully willing in the future, if necessary, to completely rebuild a client. Um, and yeah, don't forget this actually stands in its own um, project deliberately. So I don't think the HTML. I don't think I'm going to save a lot of what I've got if someone gives me a more drastic UI UX makeup or makeover. That's it, might be. Yeah, mobbing. Mobbin. Yes, that's one of the ones I've used. I kind of like it because it gives you some. You can with mobbing, you can actually get some of them have actual workflows you can go through, and you can see the actions. This one doesn't seem to have, but yeah, you actually play them back. Screens. Yeah. I don't like that. Um, I don't like that time and story pointing. Um, Plan and build products. This is linear. Flows. Oh, they've just updated actually. Nice. Creating a new issue. Projects, adding a project, views, team issues. It's amusing that we kind of refer to things differently as well. Like what they call an issue, we might call a story, maybe. I don't know. Creating an issue. Yeah, prototype. There you go. You can do that. So I can click there. I can type something. I can set a priority. I can tag it. I can attach things. I can create the issue. Know the issues with the links and the activity on it. So my changes might become activity sort of thing. I think I like the timeline thing, but I think that just the general amount of information I'm trying to display there is going to be challenging. Having a due date. It's funny this concept. So the one thing I will say is like with my stuff, the planning piece I have right now has the review date, right? It's not a due date, it's a review date for the reason that due date suggests a hard deadline. The review date is meant for the person planning it to be able to say, hey, I need this to come back to me. I need this to come back up into my list of priorities by this date so I can actually review it and see if there's any more information outstanding on it, right? It's not meant to be a deadline. Deadlines are not something I've even considered right now, if I'm honest. But I don't like the idea that a deadline is defined in the software necessarily. And that review date can move. But yeah, this is for project planning. Okay. So ClickUp is one app to replace them all. That's a stunning title. Deezer, heat maps, best note-taking app, Evernote. Hey, Sally, how's it doing? How's it going? ClickUp UI is pretty good. I don't think any of these UIs are particularly bad. I think several of them look very familiar. Um, Flows. Kevin. Mobbins crashed on me. There you go. No. And a couple of links that are for sites that are similar to mobbing, but specific to dark mode designs. Nice. Thank you. Appreciate that. That would be most handy. Thank you. Yeah. Uh, flows, onboarding. Let's have a look at them. Demo design. The third one on there, I'm going to leave until off stream. Opinions and all, right? Um, it says Zooks, Notion. Nope, nope. I'm happy to have the suggestion. I just don't want to mess around with that on the stream. Just from it's I'll look at it off stream, that one. Level up your productivity. Let's have a look. Your shortcut to everything. So what I'm learning here is from a marketing perspective, when I start to market whatever Liquid Sky is called in the end, I have to tell people that it is going to solve all their problems, that it is the way of unlocking their potential. I'm clearly not doing it right if I'm not telling people that it is the best way of being the best at the best. I'm just not sure I'm that. Like, I get that there's a marketing aspect there, and that at some point I'm going to have to accept that if I want to make Liquid Sky become a product, I have to lean into the salesmanship aspect of it. I don't know if I could be that cheesy. I like how a lot of this dark mode design site is actually linked to a bunch of sites that are about design. That's the part I would outsource. Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny, my daughter is interested in marketing. I think she actually likes the way that you can manipulate someone's opinions and outlooks um with simple pictures and simple words. I think she finds that kind of fascinating. I don't know whether that's scary or not, but yeah. So that's cool. I'm gonna look through more of that later. Obviously, mobbing is I actually have a subscription to mobbing, so I can go through this at my own time and look through. What I was looking for was some sort of maybe inspiration on how to lay those things out so that I could focus on something. Um, but I'm not sure I'm going to find anything specific to the way I've got it currently laid out. Um, what if you could say, no? So yeah, that's a tough one because again, I'm using Tailwind in here. I'm also using PrimeNG's own UI tools. And getting those lined up and figured out is something that I struggle with all the time. But we do have a feature. So I'm going to move on from it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to, it might bug some people that I'm leaving it looking like that. But I can always spend that time later and refine this. So let's get that PR done. Unit tests fail, by the way, because I need to fix on the, again, something else I need to fix. The GitHub action. I need to make sure the GitHub action has a fallback. So right now what it does is if it's got a branch, it says, okay, for the external library stuff, the foundation components, you must have a branch of the same name for me to actually build. So yeah, that's what's going wrong there. Let's create this PR. So we added the put, we deleted the add requirement component, we organized some changes there. We put in the manage requirement component so it looks a little differently. Stop this being a column grid and remove the markdown viewer because that was making more of a mess than not. Formatted the buttons here. We added the code for the back end of the component. We modified the requirements page because item is necessary for everything. So, you okay, Doug? Hello, buddy. Um, hello, friend. Hello. Hello. Can't. I'm talking on the microphone, dude. I know. I know. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hello. Come on. Loki has decided that he wants to be a lapdog. He weighs around 45 to 50 pounds. He's a skinny little bugger, but he's big and heavy. So this might be the remainder of the stream. Me with a dog on my lap, apparently. Yeah, we changed the dialogue out. We got the icon for the edit pencil in there. We got the components laid out right. Please let me know if you can't hear me. By the way, I don't know if the microphone's too far away from me or not. My voice does carry. Loki, what are you doing? You gonna say hi? Look up there. Look up there. Yeah. Okay. Loki, sit. Loki, sit. Buddy, you gotta sit. Come on. Loki, you gotta sit. Or get down, your choice. What are you doing? You gonna sit? Okay. Okay. Lay down. Lay down. I apologize to the dog. Requirement by identifier, we get that. We get the update requirement component of the store. We call the service to do the put, and we have the actual command and handler in the back end. Again, dealing with no changes. We added some unit tests around that piece. We have to publish the integration. So when you change a requirement, the requirement changes, but also we need to publish the planning item because again, the planning item has technically been updated. What's the matter, bud? What's the matter? What do you need? Do you need to go outside? You need to go outside? Is that what you want? You're not getting cookies. Hello, buddy. Okay. We have the handler for the planning item integration. So Loki, development is going to be really difficult if we're just standing on my arms. Right? So either lay down. Do you want to go outside? Do you want to go outside? Is outside a good place to go? Yeah. Okay. Let me do this PR. So we have the event. So again, when we update the planning item, the domain event fires, which then allows me to listen to that and subscribe to that, and I can publish other events. Then we have the endpoint for the put, and then I modified the update on the view to track that, and tested, wrote some unit tests. So the titles changed, the requirements changed. Okay, so I think that's good. I think that is good. I think we'll make that PR. We'll merge that. We'll squash and merge into development. Confirm, squash and merge. Delete that branch. Okay, so we can add requirements, we can delete requirements, we can add attachments, we can delete, we can add comments. We can't delete or edit comments. That's a whole different thing. I'm pretty sure they're minor in comparison to everything else. And now we can mark items as completed. So again, we can go here and well, we would be able to go there. How do we have the application running? So let's go check out that. Check out development. Update that. My co-worker here doesn't want to be helpful. He just wants belly rubs, it seems. And we can delete the edit requirements branch so we don't have that left hanging over our heads. Now we can hit, can you make the keyboard really difficult to access, buddy. I know. I know. Okay, you gonna lie down? Lay down? Park your bum? Okay, apparently park your bum was the magic word there. Or magic words. Logie, keep with your HU ideas. He might do better at it than I am. Problem is, he's pulling my headphone. He's laying on my headphone cables. There you go. Here you go, boy. He's been coming, standing by me, and putting his arms on me for weeks. I didn't realize that what he wanted was actually to get up and lay down on me. You okay, bud? You okay? You're okay, Muffin. I moved to Rider and it's so good. The Vim integration feels native. Nice. Rider is a decent IDE. Loki, the dangerous end of you is up near my face. Can we please correct this? Okay. So, as I was saying, what I've got to figure out is which pieces do I need to do to move the application forward, right? What do I actually need to get done? So here we should be able to delete a requirement. We got that working. Rider is a good idea, Loki. I don't think I've ever said that. um, buddy, Loki. He's looking for something on the floor now. So we should be able to delete a requirement. We are prompted when we get that. We say no, we don't delete the requirement. Should be able to edit an item. We can edit the item. We can change the contents of it, and that works. No, you do not need to eat my vitamins. I'm going to need a new chair if you're lying on me all the time. As I was saying, he figured out the other day that he could, if he stood there and tried to climb on me enough, I'd lift him up. And now it's become his thing. He likes laying on my lap while I'm sat here. Unfortunately, my chair is not padded sufficiently for me plus him. So again, we can mark this as completed. That's one of the things we've done recently. So now we mark that as completed. That should update, and now that's gone out of there, right? And again, we can always show completed there. I think in the long term, that show completed, it is useful. It's going to be necessary, I think, but then the categories don't really make much sense. So I think completed becomes its own category, right? And at what point do you archive, right? Because you don't need to be loading all those all the time, right? You don't need archived items all the time. So there's things like that I've got to consider. So I don't know if anybody has watched enough of the stream to really get an opinion as to how they would work within this workflow or what they would like to see. Like, I don't know if what I'm producing here is something that you're like, actually, that could actually help me. I think I could use that. Or I have no idea what he's doing. He's just building this thing. It's random, right? I would be interested to know. I'm not trying to farm ideas for this thing, right? I'm not trying to say, hey, give me your ideas, I'll implement them, and then there we go, I've made a product. But it would be interesting to know what, because again, we're not in this world, right? We're not this, the world I'm trying to build around here is the planning aspect. I'm trying to help with requirement gathering, etc., etc., etc. UI workflows, etc. Aside, what would be the most interesting thing to see me move to next? Would it be the stories? So I have contemplated cutting this off at planning, but I think this system only really comes into its own if I can demonstrate, oh, here's what creating stories looks like. So create the story side of the system. That would be a big undertaking, by the way. That would that would not be a tiny piece. Or do you feel there's more things in planning that would be helpful to figure out and organize? I'd be interested to know what people's opinions are on what is here so far. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you're in the Discord and you have opinions on this application, if you have thoughts or opinions, I'm always happy to hear them. I'd love to get some insights into what people are thinking as they're watching this, as they're looking at the actual software being developed. Do you think, oh, this is a waste of energy, or do you think this is? And I'm genuinely asking for that opinion, by the way, if that's actually the opinion. Like, I think I'm at the point where I could get lost in the weeds. There's a link in the cards below the streams, and that should take you out to Discord. Loki, what are you doing? Do you want to get down? Okay, I'm going to try and mute for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, because having gone through what I did last week, I still feel that having gone through what, like it was some sort of trauma. No. Having gone through the training again and refreshed, these takes on how to do, agile, it just drove home for me that the tooling is not what makes us agile. Our ability to adapt and change and react to the market, to the expectations, etc., are what makes us agile and is a true measure. And the team is everybody involved. It's not just the developers. We need to get the workflows correct. And as we started to talk about how to plan work, it got into the Jira conversation. And the Jira conversation is very much like, how do you lay out stories? How do you, like, if we look at the acronym, um, if you look at this, um, I'll give some feedback for your question, but I haven't been able to fully pay attention. But the thing that appeals to me about the thing you're trying to create is the fact as a developer, I would only see the things I care about. All my notes and thoughts would be in this tool for my responsibility. It would be cool if the tool, based on my notes about the feature I was implementing, would do the documentation part and release note. It's worth reading. Yeah. But it does raise a point I need to just clarify, like visual stuff, right? So, and it does lead in, right? So we focused on invest, independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable, right? We got in past experiences, we get stuck on some of these things, right? So valuable. What value does it have? So we get stuck on the fact that the valuable clearly means for the customer, and testable clearly means for QA. If you get stuck on them, then a story gets really difficult to size and really difficult to gauge because you're you are restricted in your thinking to, oh, well, that has to add value to a customer. So what I'm building with this is these requirements, this planning item, this requirement, it could be as big or as small as you want. They don't have, there's no set scale on these things. So my goal with this is to allow the product team, and good morning defaults, by the way, allow the product team to define what they want in the words they use, not worry about technical requirements. I mean, obviously, this is kind of a technical requirement, but it's actually more a visual request. It's, I want to see this, right? So it's not a technical requirement still. And allow them to build this out. And then from here, take those and actually build the stories. And the stories can be as technical as they need. They can still fit inside of this framework. They can be independent, right? We can build a component of the software that doesn't require everything else. We can still talk about what it needs to be. We can say it has value because it allows us to start moving this forward and it ultimately achieves this feature, right? That's the value. Estimable. Can we say, yes, we can actually take this piece and work on it? Is it small enough? Yes. Can we actually get it done within the sprint? And testable. If we've got unit tests around it and we've got integration tests or growing suite of tests, to me, that's more confidence. Is, are we confident this component will work when plugged into the rest of the system that it's intended for? Sometimes we end up with a story that requires us to do one thing to change to become another thing later on, but it needs to be this thing now. So I think what I'm trying to achieve here is this allows the product team to gather what they expect. And then we can take these and build the stories out as the developers need. And the stories can be pointed. Pointing doesn't matter beyond the team. Pointing matters to the team to tell them we're confident we can do this. We're not confident we can do this. Here's our rough points so that you're not adding the points up as you go, right? So you're saying, okay, we're going to take this planning item. We're going to build out the stories for it. That's going to be, and we go on point and we find out that's 32 points. And we do another planning item and we point that. And then the product team is like, I want this before this. So priority is something that I need to work into here somewhere soon as well. I need to figure out what priority means. But ultimately, the priority comes from the planning item, not the actual stories. But then the team's got to figure out, okay, well, the priority is on this over this. Where can we get these points from? And can we do that? So it's for the team to figure out how they're going to juggle those items in there, right? Yeah. Manoj, I think the next step is to split the requirements to chunk that will fit into a sprint and be meaningful if possible. And after dev has items split, maybe create the story. Only after the story is up for the next sprint are parts of it. We can estimate using agile poker or something, story point, etc., and work on it. So that's the goal. The goal is essentially these requirements can become one or many stories. Depending on how you do when you talk about stories versus tasks, but ultimately they are things that a developer can actually work on, right? So this is realistically the story, I suppose. And what we create in the developer side are tasks. maybe that's a cleaner definition than calling them stories. Because maybe with this planning item, again, the planning item could yield many items that we currently call a story. So I'm kind of crossing boundaries, I suppose. Yeah, that is the intention. And again, the planning item component is because product teams don't think in that every time you ask a product manager to break down a story into components, you end up on technical requirements, right? Um, or sorry, I can't say always. Often you start focusing on the technical requirements, and the stories become tasks that way. Um, I haven't used tasks in Jira very much, but again, if you're going to break down something that's too big and build it into tasks, then technically you're going to point the tasks. So your story is still going to be big. Um, Not actually, you're not going to actually task points, but point tasks, but in theory you are. So as it comes around, um, one line, your request, right? The idea being that the developers worry about the development side of things. So if you've got a task assigned to you, you're working on the task, you can notes to that task, you can do everything you need to do with that without worry that that is a product concern. As we get into it, we'll do things like GitHub integration, etc., so we can see that the PRs and whatnot for an individual piece. It's a long, long, long way away, right? Um, but yeah, being able to track those notes and stuff on there. And maybe, yeah, maybe release notes are useful um, from there. Because it's, yeah, you could, again, that aspect is meant to be for a developer to see. So the product team would only ever see this view, or they could see the other view, but they wouldn't look at the other view because it wouldn't make sense to them. They'd see, progress on items attached to this requirement, product progress on items attached to this requirement, etc. Something which actually fit in the sprint and definition done, which is agreed by all stakeholders. Not all stories can fit into one sprint. Piecemeal approach to dev would work, or sometimes tasks can run across multiple sprints, but it's all up to the team to plan it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give the people in the roles the tools that they need to play a part. And we are we are a team, but then when we start to try and fit everyone's requirements from a job perspective, right? My job is to take the requirements as outlined by the product, defined and agreed upon by the team, the development team, to go off and work on this component and build it back into the larger piece. From the planning perspective, from the product perspective, they care about where are we with progress and what sort of work do we have outstanding and what don't we know yet, right? So again, that's why this is all meant for past due, current, upcoming. It's for them to use to track this. The development board won't have past due, etc. It will have a scrum board. It'll have a backlog, right? The backlog will be agreed upon work that has these have generated stories from, or a planning or a support ticket has come through and been added to the backlog. They will have priority. They will have those sorts of things. Um, Sorry, I hear a lot of noise outside my window. So, giving ownership back to the developers. And Addy is going to start in 3 minutes, but I need to. I still made the 2 hours, which is awesome. I do apologize if I didn't get any real development done today. That was not my intention, but Maybe you can have tasks related to this particular planning item tagged to the planning item, as in, say, 10 items, maybe in some way show progress as about like dev testing, may also percentage progress based on the number of tasks and complexity, maybe too much. So, one thing I want to be mindful of, and you're not wrong, right? So the intent would be from this requirement might yield 3 stories. So there'll be an indicator here as to the number of stories, right? That's why, like, this is all in flux. There'll be an indicator as to the number of stories this created, and at the top there'll be a number of stories here. The product planner, the product manager will be able to see their own Scrum board as where all the items sit, right, that are in progress. The stories that are there, where they all sit in relation to each other. Because they might have planning items that are part of an initiative, right? So you'll be able to see an initiative board and a planning item board as to where stories currently lie for that particular planning item. That is my intention. So you'll be able to see the Scrum board still as they relate to you. Morning, Napalm. Um, I'm not going to make that that ad window. So there's going to be 2 minutes of ads that are going to run. Um, way bigger streamer. I'm sure you put that influx. I thought it at the same time, but just didn't raise it. So yeah, so the goal will be that the product team can see the progress of things without actually worrying about whether developers have things. Um, so the swim lanes for developers can be the swim lanes for a development team. How they lay their work out is up to them. Overall, there's a concept of not ready or not started, in progress, and done. Um, but done can be the different directions. So no worries, defaults. Um, but the goal will be to keep product in their product boards, right? So they can see where they are, they can see the progress, and again, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of different things to work on here. There's a lot of different views, perspectives, etc. that need to work on. I think realistically, as much as I don't want to, I kind of want to build this out, but unless I can build this out to the point where I demonstrate this is why it's not Jira, I don't think I'm ever going to do a good enough job of explaining these concepts. This isn't Jira because it is separating those two pieces into. Oh, now Streamlabs pipes up. No, Streamlabs hasn't said a single thing for the entire stream, and then just goes, "Yeah, do you have any questions?" um, yeah, I I do need to say, I could make this. I could carry on now and make this some sort of product, and I'm going to start using this, right? I'm going to start using this to track what I'm doing, but at some point the story aspect of it is going to become a differentiator, because this right now looks like Jira. It looks like, well, it looks far worse than Jira, but the concepts are starting to show through, right? um the stories themselves are going to need some work, right? How am I going to define a team? How am I going to define who sees what? How am I going to define, am I going to group a team by a project? I don't think so. I think I'm going to group a team by a team, and they're assigned the project. So there'll be an overall backlog of work created. Hello, buddy. Did you go outside? Did you go outside? Be a brave boy. You braved the air. These dogs do not like rain, so yesterday was kind of miserable for them. But yeah, so I think that the stories aspect of this, that component is going to be the only differentiator. And I just realized the ads have been running for a minute, so I know several of you aren't affected by that. But Um, I just thought with the project manager hat on, I'd want to be able to specify requirements and be nice to the system generate the developer tasks. So again, I think this is, I'm going to wait the 10 seconds just to kind of talk that through a bit more. Okay, ads should have ended. So my general question was not necessarily on the UI specifically. The UI is just the current representation of the ideas, right? From a workflow perspective, I see this very much, and again, once I start to try and build these out myself, it should start to demonstrate these in a no worries, no worries, one line. I appreciate it. Um, these are aimed at allowing the product manager to write down roughly what they're trying to achieve in the description, and then go in and add the requirements for what completes their vision. From here, they shouldn't be thinking about how the developers are going to break that down. They shouldn't care how the developers are going to break that down because it's what they're expecting. They should be guided that an individual requirement should be definable. It should be kind of standalone to to them. Like delete a requirement, edit a requirement. Those are two requirements on that requirements piece because they are actually separate requirements. They're not standalone. They're not grouped together. Um, the idea, the developers would sit down with the product team looking at this content and say, actually, that's a, you know, okay, we understand that. Oh, can we ask some more questions about this and drill that detail down and understand the requirements? Because again, everyone reading this should understand what is expected based upon this description, what is expected of that thing when it actually is produced, whether it be one story, whether it be 50 stories, whatever. At the point the developers are comfortable, the requirements are understandable, and they understand where in the system they'll be changing things and what pieces they'll be looking at, they can gather the right people and they can sit down and say, okay, well, this requirement, it yields a story for adding a page here, adding an endpoint here, doing this. These are three different pieces. Each one adds value, each one is testable, each one is independent, etc. So they generate the stories from these requirements. The AI perspective, I have contemplated allowing the person to write this and have it kind of figure out what it would deem the requirements itself. That is a long down the line thing, but offer, hey, we feel based upon what you described, these are kind of the requirements. And maybe it can work again in the same way. But the problem is the stories are technically focused. So from a requirements perspective, that might be harder. So yeah, that's the kind of the workflow I'm envisioning. So product manager, project manager, however you want to term them, product owner, whichever role they're playing, sits down, gathers requirements. There's a whole like user research component that's got to come with it. Like, gathering notes from customers, gathering feedback. Is there a poll? Is there some sort of insights? Was this generated from a customer? Sounds like backlog grooming. It does, doesn't it? Not unintentional, because it is backlog grooming. It is true backlog grooming because it's actually figuring out what the product manager wants and figuring out what the stories are that actually align to that. So rather than the product manager specifying the stories, the developers own so the stories in the common way we think about them. So rather than because we think of stories as something that is worked upon. So the tasks, whatever we want to call them, right? So the tasks that are created, the stories that are created from this are that a result of that grooming. Yep, we think this is one story or one task, however we term it. There we go. It's one story, one task. We can take that. We can add our notes to that and do what we need in there and not have to worry about that bleeding in. If we need to talk technical, we can add technical requirements and stuff, and those can be tracked in the tasks or whatever we call it, right? Part of the system. So it is grooming. It is exactly backlog grooming. It's just making sure that we're building a backlog of work that is meaningful and can be traced back to the request. If this changes, if this requirement changes, that work goes away and it cleans up that backlog. Those backlog items no longer need to be there. So they don't have to worry about those backlog items. If one of them has been worked upon, then that's a discussion, right? So that's kind of my vision. It's not really different, but it is it's different in how we get to those pieces. And it is using tools where process can do, but we get stuck on the tools all the time. We get stuck on how to implement it, how to lay it out, how to fit this need of the product team and development team into the same tool. And then the developers become, oh, where are we with this thing? Where are we with this thing? Because they're seen as the experts in this complicated mess we call Jira normally. Or whatever other tools you use as a company, I bet is in a similar place. And this could be the same way, right? But at least along the way, I've reflected on my understanding of Agile and of Scrum. I've reflected on my understanding of, software practices and development, and shared that. So, with that said, I still have no other .NET developers that I know of in my list. RAG status. I think knowing what we're doing and where we are at is largely business dependent. If they can't figure out what they want, not sure how they expect devs to snap their fingers on. But it's visuals. It everything. If you look at Jira, if you look at every tool for development, it's not about the developer, which is why I want to build these out, produce these things, have the developers own that content and run that content and not have to worry about everything else. And everything else is handled for them. What project is it a part of? What initiative is it part of? Does it roll up into something? Is it an epic? You don't care about an epic. You care about, I've got this work to do. I'm going to do it. Here's what we need to work on. Here's what we need to change. Is it high priority? Is it not? So from a development perspective, getting to those pieces, getting away from everything else, and then allowing the management, again, don't forget there's a whole alerting component that I want to put in this, the whole changes thing, right? Allowing you to say, I care about when this changes or this changes or this changes. That is an entire system that I need to build, or flesh out, because I've obviously got components of it working. But that is all for management. It's also the management can say, okay, I care about when this initiative goes to state or it's gone past due or whatever. I care about these things. Do you intend to integrate with Jira? You know what happens when they want the data where they are used to it. If I get to the point where I have to worry about Jira integration, then that is a point in which I'll be able to hire more people. Because if I get to that point, then that would definitely be feasible, right? If I can get to the point where I can demonstrate this effectively to people and that people, because it would be a dream to make a product, right? But right now I'm just enjoying making the software and building it as professionally as I can in the spare time I have, and being able to demonstrate some of these principles and grow and learn. So yeah, integrate with Jira would be probably a requirement, right? Because you'd want to be able to pull what they have. What are you doing, dog? What are you trying to help yourself to? Go lie down? You a big old boy? Okay. But anyway, it's 20 past almost. I've now gone from I might cut the stream short to I've gone way longer than I should be. So I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more about this then. Maybe I'll start to structure out some of that extra system, and we'll agree upon. Do we want to call them stories? Do we want to call them tasks? Because is this not the story, really? So we'll see. I'm going to raid over to Fullbots because I need to raid out, and I don't know of any other .NET devs. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for hanging out. And thank you for the feedback and the opinions. I do really appreciate it. And again, I'm not trying to farm ideas. I'm just trying to see, is this something that would be useful? And what would you like to see? That matters as well, because I will focus on what people would be interested in seeing as well. So let's go raid Mr. Fullbots. He builds a game. It is awesome. It is well worth checking out. It's in Steam for pre-order or for yeah, not pre-order. Take care all. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Bye.